Hey, and welcome back, loyal viewers. So I wake up every morning and lie in bed with a cup of coffee and read what's presented to me as the science news. And the science news I got today is particularly interesting. CERN researchers admit communication with extra-dimensional beings by Terry Larch. I'm sorry to mention his name, but we'll get on to that. And Terry writes, "It seems like something from science fiction. Listen to this really carefully, but people have admitted to communicating with extra-dimensional beings of some type. These researchers from CERN have for some time been interacting with something beyond our understanding." Right, stop. That so annoyed me. I'm sorry, Terry. It is precisely what's wrong with science today. This is what I think is really going on. The man in the street, the woman on the Clapham omnibus, whatever Joe Public, is still slightly confused by Newton's apple. Never mind Albert Einstein and his concept of relativity, or E equals mc squared. That is pretty much not explained and beyond most people's general understanding. But it goes much further. There was a magic window of physics between World War I and World War II, and it's really unfortunate that it took place at that time in human history. The true nature of atoms was revealed. The brilliant Rutherford at the Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge did the ultimate experiment that changes, and this is the interesting thing, it changes our perception of reality. It redefines everything about the true nature of the universe. Back in the 19th century, the concept of an atom was envisaged as a thought experiment because you couldn't see them. And what those researchers thought was an atom was a collection, a meatball, a plum pudding was actually the term they used, of subatomic particles held together as a solid lump. And then you got lots of them and made a matrix to produce the everyday material that we have surrounding us. A rock or a lump of metal. And it was just the difference of the plum puddings and how they were stuck together that produced the material science of the modern world, until Lord Rutherford did this classic experiment where he took the most dense material that he could come across. Here's not an example, but he took a sheet of gold, dense metal. You know, very stable. And I think it was very clever that he chose gold. What he did is he fired alpha particles which are smaller than the size of an atom. And he wanted to bounce the alpha particles off the plum puddings, off the meatballs, so it would go bonk. Because the alpha particles are smaller than the size of a single atom of gold. So obviously, when it hit the solid gold atom, it would go bonk and bounce back. So he put detectors round the alpha particle emitter. But that's not what he found. Your universe was turned on its head, because what Rutherford found is that 99.999999, almost to infinity, of alpha particles went right through the gold sheet. Not deflected, not hitting the plum pudding. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Why didn't they hit the atom of gold? He thought about it, and he knew that atoms by this time were made up of a nucleus that was positively charged, surrounded by a field of negative energy that we call electrons. They're not really single particles orbiting like we see in the physics books. They're more a field of probability of negative charge, attracted and repelled equally in lockstep by the force of electromagnetic energy. Donk, they're locked in, and that is a very strong force. But between the field of electrons and the tiny positive charged nucleus, there is nothing. Nothing. And the alpha particles went poof right through the nothingness. The only chance of a deflection of an alpha particle was if it hit the nucleus He described that as shooting a fly in a cathedral, which is just the best image, describing the true nature of atoms. So you get it? We live in nothing. We live in electromagnetic bonds. Just a few years later, also at the Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge, split an unstable atom, into its tiny bits. That demonstrated that atoms were made of subatomic particles. It's a very important and interesting experiment. Later on, at the Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge, Chadwick discovered that inside the tiny fly in the cathedral proton nucleus are neutrons, non-charged particles of various number which give atomic properties to material. Those neutrons were the key to building an atomic weapon. But stop. We live in a world of physical stuff. We have wrenches, spanners, we have plastic, we have Allen keys. We hit things and they are solid. And that's how we work. And we're clever bunnies, and we can turn steel into ships, so we can turn aluminum into flying aircraft. But in fact, there's nothing there. We're all just an electromagnetic fantasy of bonds. So what happened to that incredible redefinition of reality? No longer is anything really solid. Even gold is 99.99999 transparent, and you can pass right through it because most of it isn't there. Well, that's quite a different way of understanding your world. But what happened next totally redefined the weird. Quantum mechanics and Niels Bohr. What the quantum mechanics physicists envisaged was a weirder world where everything is entangled and connected, a weirder universe where everything is actually just a probability, that not only is nothing existing, we're all just bonds, but in fact those bonds are connected over time and space and can be entangled as a spooky pair. And they only described that quantum world in mathematics. Totally out of touch with the woman on the Clapham omnibus, with Joe Public. We became disconnected from physics. But there was one person sitting in a war office who said, weaponize it. And that's of course what they did. The Manhattan Project was the start of physics of the 20th century going deep underground and dark. Probably for a good reason. The atomic bombs dropped on Japan ended World War II. But Los Alamos, Sandia, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, British Aerospace Systems, whoever throughout the world, in different countries as well, stole your reality. All research in the hallowed towers of the Cavendish Laboratory and every other science institute throughout the world was now funneled into weaponization. Modern physics went dark. It was now controlled by magicians, puppet masters, and you didn't really know what's going on. What they wanted you to believe is still Newton's apple. They didn't want you to fully understand Einstein. They certainly didn't want you to understand, even if you could, quantum physics, but they could exploit it. The man behind the curtain. We all think that in a war we'll die from a bullet wound. Probably not. Today, a directed energy weapon from space will vaporize your reality. We all think you could join the Air Force and fly an airplane. No, the Air Force are hiring people who are messing around with people's perception of time. We live in a dark world of physics, a physics behind a curtain, controlled by puppet masters, and we are the puppets. So when I read today that CERN, which is an enormous organization made up of many experiments, is communicating maybe with extraterrestrials through interdimensions, it's, I'll be waiting to say this, bollocks. No, it is. It's truly bollocks. What this article is all about is about misunderstanding. It's about how we are behind the curtain, how physics is actually controlled by aerospace corporations, defense contractors, building stuff to kill us in ways that is exotic. And on the internet is complete shite about how CERN may be at the Large Hadron Collider. Who knows? There's lots of experiments going on at CERN, and lots of other places like CERN are speaking to interdimensional beings. What that shows is a complete misunderstanding of modern physics, because it's been stolen from you ever since World War II and the Manhattan Project, where physics probably needed to go dark, needed to be kept secret from an enemy. It has never re-emerged into the light. You are living in a fantasy world where your military and your government are funding projects that you don't know anything about to kill you and the world in novel ways. After World War II, that continued. It was seen as an advantage over a potential enemy and over you, the general public. I and others want to expose that. We want to explain to you what's really going on. That's why I'm working with the wonderful US Air Force retired John Burroughs. John Burroughs experienced a weaponization experiment. He was injured by human physics. Whether those human physics unlock something greater, we are still exploring. The subject I'm fascinated by and I'm researching for you is the most important subject of today. Almost nobody is interested in watching my channel. I'm this disheveled, unattractive, old bloke talking shite. I completely agree. For my entertainment, I watch Matt Armstrong fixing his Lamborghini, or Musty wrenching on rusty old junk. If you want to actually peer behind the curtain and understand 21st century physics, I promise to try my hardest to explain in layman's language what's really going on. Now, here's the huge favor I'm going to ask you. Yeah, you. That old bloke like me who's actually watching this channel. Most people don't watch it. And YouTube know that. I'm not popular. So most of my films talking about very deep, dark subjects get 2,000 or 3,000 old blokes like me who are interested in the subject. So I'm asking you, specifically you, who are watching this and occasionally enjoy what I say and think it's intriguing, please become a $1 patron. Forget the YouTube stupid adverts. Have high quality 4K picture, actual email sent to you when the films are published long before they're seen on YouTube. A discussion where you talk to me and other people, old blokes like us. It's really working. It's really fascinating. If you're a rare, loyal viewer to this old bloke's channel talking bollocks, please become a patron today, and here's the link. Because of you, the truth is out there. Long may it continue.